Some truths hide right in front of us. Donald Trump and Ivanka shared a closeness that had sparked speculation for years. But it wasn't until Barack Obama spoke up that the shadow became fully visible. His words revealed a danger, and Trump's furious reaction only deepened the story. The rally was enormous. The energy in the air buzzed, almost tangible, pressing against the chest like electricity. Supporters stood shoulder to shoulder, waving banners, chanting, waiting for that singular moment when the president himself would appear on stage. The spotlight cut through the crowd, and the music surged. Then he walked out. Donald Trump, radiating his familiar confidence, soaking in the cheers as if he were a star on opening night. He raised his hand, pointed into the audience, and let the applause roll over him. For a few minutes, it followed the familiar rhythm. Powerful statements about leadership, fiery lines about America's greatness, the call and response energy his rallies were known for. But then the tone shifted. Trump leaned closer to the microphone. The crowd sensed the change quieting down. His voice softened, not the booming force they were accustomed to. He wasn't discussing policy or rivals. He was speaking about family. And then, in that softer tone, he said the words that would ignite the storm. Ivanka isn't just my daughter. She's the partner behind my biggest decisions. The moment froze in the air like a photograph. People clapped, some out of loyalty, others unsure how to react. But as the applause faded, confusion, surprise, and unease became visible on their faces. Partner. He didn't call her an advisor. He didn't call her a supporter. He used the word partner. It wasn't the first time Ivanka's closeness to her father had raised eyebrows. Over the years, she had been more than a daughter on the sidelines. She had been in meetings, seated at tables with world leaders, representing the administration at international events. But Trump's statement added new weight. He wasn't just proud, he was openly acknowledging her extraordinary influence in decisions shaping the country. And the way he said it, intensely, almost tenderly suggested, he relied on her, perhaps even more than on official advisors or elected officials. The crowd began to murmur. Some exchanged wide-eyed glances. Over the years, critics had highlighted the unusual closeness between Trump and Ivanka, fueled by remarks that often sounded too personal, like the televised smirked comment. If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. That statement had caused shock at the time, but now on stage, he was blurring the lines between a father's love and the role of a political partner. Trump continued as though nothing unusual had been said. He smiled, gestured toward Ivanka seated proudly in the audience, and carried on with his rally. Yet the seed had already been planted. His words rippled through the crowd like waves. You could see it in the shifting of stances, the hushed conversations, people trying to process what they had just heard. Some shrugged it off, attributing it to Trump being Trump. Others leaned in, sensing layers beneath the surface. Because if Ivanka was truly his partner in decisions, what did that mean for the presidency? What did it mean for the nation? For years, Ivanka had been perceived as elegant, composed, polished, a figure shaped for cameras. But behind the smile, how much influence did she hold now? With Trump putting it all on display, the world was forced to wonder, was she simply a daughter standing at her father's side, or something more? That single line, one sentence, set the stage for one of the most explosive exchanges between two American presidents. But in that rally crowd, and even for Trump, no one could predict how quickly the statement would strike back when Barack Obama decided to speak. While Trump's words echoed across the country, a quiet storm brewed elsewhere. Former President Barack Obama had been watching closely. Unlike the rally, he didn't cheer or whisper in confusion. He listened, He took notes. He prepared. For months, Obama had received fragments of information from sources deep inside the system. At first, they seemed like rumors, an unlogged meeting, a phone call bypassing official channels, a witness claiming Ivanka had been in rooms where national security decisions were made. The whispers grew louder, accompanied by documents, reports, intercepted communications. One insider claimed Ivanka steered discussions meant only for the president and his cabinet. Another said she bypassed seasoned advisors to push influence directly to her father. Piece by piece, the puzzle emerged. Ivanka wasn't a bystander. She wasn't merely an advisor. She was shaping decisions at the highest level behind closed doors, with no accountability. Obama, a man who valued process, order, and transparency, watched as Trump elevated his daughter as a partner. He saw the line between family and governance snapping under pressure. When the bipartisan summit was announced, Obama saw an opportunity. It wasn't just another event. It was a stage watched by politicians and citizens alike. The topic: democracy, trust, leadership. Obama decided it was time to reveal what he had learned. On summit day, the room was packed with senators, governors, ambassadors, faces from both sides. Cameras lined the walls. The hum of anticipation was tangible. Then, Obama entered calm, composed in his usual dark suit. He resembled a professor walking into a lecture hall more than a former commander-in-chief about to drop a political bomb. He greeted the audience with a subtle smile, shook hands, and took his seat. For a while, discussion followed the expected path: speeches on bipartisanship, remarks on working together, a few light jokes. But everyone knew Obama had something more. When his turn came, the room changed. Chatter stopped. Cameras zoomed in. Obama leaned forward, his voice steady, almost gentle. He began with the importance of transparency, the need for trust between leaders and the public. Democracy, he reminded, protects not only policy, but boundaries. Clear lines between family and power, private loyalty, and public responsibility. At first, it sounded like a lecture ordinary. But as he spoke, tension grew. His words slowed, his pauses stretched. Then came the turn. Without raising his voice or showing anger, he said he had reviewed months of evidence indicating Ivanka Trump played a far greater role in presidential decisions than publicly acknowledged. He mentioned secret meetings, intercepted calls, and testimonies describing decisions swayed not by elected officials, but by the president's daughter. The audience went silent. Obama looked directly into the cameras, speaking to the nation as much as the room. He clarified he wasn't motivated by malice or personal animosity. It was about the public's right to know. Then, after a long pause, he said the words that shook the room. Sometimes it's hard to tell if she's acting as his daughter or if she's playing another role entirely. The silence was deafening. The audience stared wide-eyed, caught between shock and disbelief. A cough echoed from the back. A chair squeaked. Whispers rippled. Had he just said that? Had he just questioned the very nature of the president's relationship with his daughter? The cameras tightened. Every glance, every bead of sweat, every subtle twitch was visible. Obama stayed calm, letting the words hang, daring anyone to confront them. Suddenly, memories resurfaced. Trump's past remarks about Ivanka, once brushed off as jokes, now felt darker. Images of magazine covers, public appearances, compliments that seemed unusual for a father, all stitched together into a narrative too uncomfortable to voice. Obama hadn't accused or attacked. He had asked a question sharp enough to cut through years of silence. The seconds stretched long. 42 seconds felt like hours. The cameras swung toward Ivanka. She sat straight, hands folded, her polished smile intact. If shaken, she didn't show it yet. Her stillness spoke volumes. The audience shifted. Some avoided eye contact. Others leaned forward, anticipating an eruption. Donald Trump, watching from nearby, reacted. His jaw tightened. Lips pressed thin knuckles white. He looked like a man containing a storm. Then it happened. He slammed his hand down. Chairs shook, heads snapped. His voice erupted loud and raw. "That's my daughter you're talking about." My daughter. The room jumped. The polished president mask was gone. What stood before them was a father furious, unfiltered, ready to defend what he held closest. With that, the summit became a battlefield where personal pride, political power, and family loyalty collided. The silence had lasted long enough for the tension to become almost tangible. Obama's words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate, while the quiet in the room seemed to amplify every heartbeat. Trump's hand had slammed onto the table, the sound echoing sharp and unrelenting, a visceral declaration that the line had been crossed. His face flushed with anger, his jaw set like iron eyes burning with a mixture of pride and outrage. "That's my daughter you're talking about. My daughter!" He thundered again, voice raw, echoing through the hall. There was no rehearsed cadence, no careful political performance, just the fury of a father who felt challenged, cornered, and publicly exposed. The room was frozen. Senators, governors, ambassadors, and press alike were suspended in a moment that seemed to stretch beyond time. Some gasped. Others shifted uneasily in their seats, unsure of how to process the collision of raw paternal defense and the broader political implications. Trump leaned forward, jabbing a finger toward the stage as his voice grew more forceful. He accused Obama of crossing sacred lines, dragging family into politics, turning loyalty into something ugly. "You don't talk about my daughter like that," he growled. "You don't." Yet despite the anger, there was a notable absence. He didn't deny the implications. He didn't claim Ivanka lacked influence or assert that she had no role in shaping decisions. Instead, his strategy became deflection. His fury pivoted toward the media political opponents and the broader establishment. "This is nothing but a smear campaign," he shouted, gesturing wildly. "They're scared of my success, scared of my family. They'll do anything to bring us down." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some clapped out of loyalty or solidarity. Others watched cautiously of the growing spectacle. Trump continued accusing unnamed enemies of undermining his legacy, of disrespecting his family, of crossing every boundary of decency. Yet the careful listener could discern a deeper narrative beneath the eruption. Anger often masks fear, and the louder Trump shouted, the more it appeared he was dodging the very question Obama had posed. He had shifted the focus from Ivanka's role to an external threat, positioning himself and his daughter as victims in a world conspiring against them. The message was clear: attack the messenger, not the content. All eyes, however, inevitably returned to Ivanka. Sitting just a few feet from her father, she remained composed, nearly statuesque, as though carved from marble. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her chin lifted slightly, her polished smile unchanged. She offered no reaction, no defense, no hint of faltering. In that stillness was power, either sheer discipline or calculated restraint. Every gaze in the room flicked to her, seeking confirmation, a slip, an acknowledgement. Yet she offered none. Her silence spoke louder than words, a quiet counterbalance to the storm raging around her. The tension in the room was palpable. Trump's fury surged a tidal wave of mixture and deflection, but it revealed more than it concealed. While he claimed to protect his family, to shield his daughter from insinuation, His refusal to confront the question directly only deepened suspicion. If his bond with Ivanka were purely paternal, why not clarify her role? Why not assert boundaries? Instead, the narrative became one of protective rage, an emotional barricade over the realities Obama had raised. Meanwhile, Obama's calm persisted. He didn't interrupt, he didn't retaliate, and he didn't raise his voice. He'd solely allowed Trump's eruption to unfold, knowing the spectacle would illustrate the stakes of blurred boundaries far more than any statement he could make. The silence between the former president and the current one became a language of its own, conveying concern, restraint, and a warning without further confrontation. Observers in the room and later viewers across the nation were left to parse the implications. The summit, initially framed as a discussion on democracy, trust, and leadership, had become a stage for a personal confrontation layered with political significance. The fusion of family loyalty and presidential power posed questions no policy briefing could answer. Was the daughter simply an advisor? Or was she a partner wielding influence without formal accountability? If so, how did that align with the principles of transparency and governance? The cameras lingered on Ivanka, her serene composure acting as a foil to the storm. She didn't flinch. She didn't react. That silence became almost eerie, yet undeniably commanding. Some perceived strength in it, proof she could withstand scrutiny. Others saw calculation a deliberate choice to maintain control, avoiding missteps that could exacerbate the tension. Either way, the contrast between her calm and Trump's volatility magnified the stakes. Trump's tirade gradually shifted focus outward. He accused the media, his political rivals, and the so-called establishment of fabricating narratives, manipulating facts, and orchestrating attacks against his family. He painted himself and Ivanka as warriors, standing against forces intent on dismantling their legacy. And in doing so, he reframed the narrative. It wasn't about Ivanka's influence anymore, but about loyalty, victimhood, and defending the sanctity of family. But the careful observer recognized the subtext. The more he projected fury outward, the more it underscored the unresolved question: the exact nature of Ivanka's role in the administration. Passion could not substitute for clarity, and his deflection revealed that the lines between family affection and political authority remained ambiguous. Every gesture, every word, every heated emphasis served as evidence of protective instinct rather than transparent governance. In the aftermath, the audience was left in suspended tension. Some leaned back, processing the eruption with discomfort. Others leaned forward, captivated by the raw human drama unfolding alongside the political discourse. It was messy, personal, human, far beyond policy debates and sound bites. It was the intersection of fatherly devotion and the responsibilities of the highest office in the land, played out in real time, before a nation watching closely. As the summit drew toward conclusion, the atmosphere remained heavy, almost electric. Conversations were hushed, voices low, as participants left their seats. Some shook their heads, unable to reconcile the events they had witnessed. Others whispered cautiously, sharing impressions, while avoiding direct acknowledgement of what had transpired. The discussion on democracy had morphed into a reflection on the boundaries of power, the intersection of family and governance, and the unspoken influence of those close to the president. Obama's intent had always been clear. His remarks were not personal attacks or attempts at political theater. They were a caution when personal loyalty eclipses public duty. The system itself is at risk. He spoke not to undermine Ivanka, not to provoke Trump, but to highlight the importance of boundaries, accountability, and the dangers of unelected influence shaping decisions at the highest level. His challenge was directed at the concept of blurred authority, not at the individuals themselves. Trump's reaction told another story. Fury, protective instinct, and deflection replaced explanation or transparency. In defending Ivanka as a father, he revealed the tension inherent in combining familial loyalty with presidential power. The louder he shouted, the more it underscored the absence of a clear boundary. The spectacle was both a shield and an exposure, a defense of love intertwined with political ambiguity. And then there was Ivanka, the quiet center of the storm. She remained composed, almost statuesque, as though impervious to the surrounding chaos. Every eye, every camera, every whisper circled back to her. Her silence became a statement, one of resilience, control, and perhaps subtle acknowledgement that any word could escalate the situation. She allowed her father's voice to act as a protective barrier, and in doing so, maintained a strategic invisibility, a calm at the heart of the political tempest. The implications extended far beyond the room. Across living rooms, offices, and dinner tables, the nation absorbed the unfolding drama. Questions arose naturally. Should the daughter of a president serve as an informal partner in shaping decisions? Is it acceptable for family ties to carry authority in the highest office? Where does the line between private loyalty and public duty lie? Trump's declaration and Obama's response had framed these questions vividly, leaving citizens to wrestle with the answers themselves. As cameras cut away, the debate had only begun. Across the country, people started asking the same haunting question. Was Ivanka merely a daughter standing at her father's side? Or was she something more, an influential partner with unaccountable sway? The ambiguity lingered, amplified by Trump's refusal to clarify and Ivanka's deliberate silence. By the time the summit ended, the air remained thick. The exchange between two presidents, one current, one former, had transformed a discussion on governance into a moment that exposed the fragile, complicated intersection of family and power. Observers noted that the tension wasn't resolved. It had been magnified, laid bare, and left to simmer. The spectacle of protective fury, calm scrutiny, and composed silence created a tableau that resonated far beyond the immediate political sphere. For those watching the episode, was a mirror reflecting the precariousness of personal influence in public office. Power, when mixed with family, can become unpredictable, dangerous, and difficult to monitor. What began as a lecture on democracy had become an examination of trust, transparency, and the invisible lines that safeguard a system. The eruption. The silence and the question posed collectively illustrated the stakes. How much influence is too much, and who decides where the boundary lies? In the aftermath, opinions varied. Some viewed Trump's defense as a natural, protective, fatherly response. Others saw it as a deflection from accountability. Ivanka's stillness was interpreted either as fortitude or as careful strategy preserving authority without exposure. Obama's intervention remained the lens through which the event was viewed, a measured, evidence-based challenge, emphasizing systemic integrity over personal conflict. Ultimately, the confrontation left more questions than answers. The nation was forced to grapple with the uneasy truth: family ties, at the highest level of government, can blur lines, complicate transparency, and provoke suspicion. The summit's conclusion was less about resolution and more about reflection, prompting citizens to consider the structures designed to maintain accountability and the vulnerabilities that arise when those structures intersect with familial bonds. Was Ivanka Trump simply the president's daughter, or was she an active, influential partner in shaping policies? The question remained unanswered, suspended in the public consciousness. its weight compounded by Trump's fury, Ivanka's silence, and Obama's careful challenge. The summit had ended, but the dialogue it ignited was only beginning, echoing across the country as Americans grappled with the realities of power, loyalty, and the boundaries that separate them. The moment would be remembered not just for the confrontation itself, but for the broader implications it highlighted, the intricate, often uneasy interplay between family and governance, and the enduring question of accountability at the highest levels of power. Trump's emotional defense, Obama's measured scrutiny, and Ivanka's composed presence collectively underscored a central truth when private loyalty intersects with public duty. The balance is delicate, the stakes high, and the consequences enduring. And so the story concluded not with resolution or applause, but with an open question that continues to resonate. Was Ivanka Trump merely a daughter at her father's side, or was she something else entirely? In the silence that followed, the nation was left to fill in the blanks, weighing the evidence, interpreting the gestures, and pondering the profound, unresolved question of influence, family, and power at the heart of the presidency.